narrows down the final days of one of the most disturbing celebrity murder cases of our time.
New video footage of a girl believed to be Celeste at David's concert in late August has surfaced, which would be the last date she was seen alive, but the internet is divided on the latest update about this footage. A girl who looks a lot like Celeste was spotted at David's concert on either the 23rd or the 24th of August in Silver Spring, Maryland. She was up on the balcony on the side of the stage watching on, and it's hard to deny that she resembles Celeste. She looks a lot like.
The internet is still trying to make sense of the grainy concert footage that surfaced from one of David's shows. Footage that set off a storm of theories, questions, and straight up panic. People couldn't stop replaying the clip, swearing that the girl caught on camera looked exactly like Celeste Rivas. For a moment, it felt like the entire world had paused. If what people were seeing was real, then the entire timeline of her disappearance had just blown apart. And then the FBI stepped in with a revelation that sent everything spiraling into an even darker direction. The new development didn't just shift the narrative, it tore the case open. Investigators confirmed that freshly enhanced video from David's performance in Silver Spring, Maryland seemed to show his girlfriend, the 15-year-old Celeste Rivas, alive in the crowd. That detail alone twisted the investigation into something far more complicated. The idea that she might have been alive just days before her remains were found in the trunk of David's abandoned Tesla flipped every assumption upside down. People who had been following the case from day one felt like the ground had been pulled out from under them. In the clip, you see a girl standing near the balcony, motionless for a moment as the camera pans. Her hair, her height, the quiet stillness she always had in photos, it all matched Celeste almost perfectly. And the outfit, a simple black tube top, was exactly the same type of top she was wearing when her body was recovered. That detail alone made the internet freeze. It was too specific to brush off, too close for coincidence. If that girl was really Celeste, then everything the authorities thought they understood about her last days was suddenly wrong. What made the moment even more disturbing was what David himself seemed to do on stage. At one point in the footage, he looks up toward the balcony, points directly at the girl, and makes half of a heart symbol with his hand. It wasn't a casual gesture. It carried an intimacy that made people uneasy. Fans who had attended his shows before said he rarely, if ever, singled out specific faces in the crowd like that. It felt deliberate, almost practiced, as if he recognized her instantly, and standing right beside her was David's own brother, subtly turning toward her, nodding, interacting in a way that seemed way too familiar. That small detail shook the entire fan base and true crime community. If this girl really was Celeste, then the people closest to David had seen her, acknowledged her, and were right there next to her. It suddenly looked less like a secret someone stumbled upon and more like something his inner circle had been aware of for a long time. That raised a chilling question. How deep did the involvement go, and how long had they all been concealing whatever was happening between David and the underage girl who had been reported missing more than a year earlier?
Another video, we see David pointing at the girl on the balcony while he makes a half heart. The guy she's standing next to is also David's brother, which raises even more questions, and particularly how much did he know about Celeste and David's relationship? Because if he's his brother and he's around backstage, going to concerts, hanging out with Celeste, he must know a lot about at least their relationship.
Then came the most haunting part of all. The concert happened around 12 days before David's Tesla was discovered abandoned near his home in the Hollywood Hills, with Celeste's decomposed body hidden inside the trunk. Early reports had suggested she had been dead for weeks.
That was her in the video. This raises the question of whether or not 12 days was enough time for her body to decompose to the state that it was in. Now, I'm no expert on this stuff, but I will say I was in LA during September during this time, and it was extremely hot. So the fact that she was in a trunk, closed up, wrapped in plastic in that heat, could potentially speed up the decomposition process, in my mind, but also according to ChatGPT.
Maybe longer, but the footage forced everyone to rethink that assumption. If she really had been alive during that concert, then her final moments unfolded in a very narrow window of time. A window that pointed straight back to David. People couldn't stop asking whether a body could truly deteriorate so quickly. Experts weighed in, saying that under the right conditions, especially in the smothering heat of a closed trunk during Los Angeles in September, wrapped tightly in plastic, decomposition could accelerate at an alarming speed. It was possible, they said, though horrifying to imagine. The idea that her life might have ended so soon after being seen alive made the footage even more important and terrifying. Online detectives dove deeper, frame by frame. They zoomed in on her face, paused at every movement, compared her body language with old photos and videos of Celeste. They studied the way she held her hands, the slight turn of her head, the calmness in her posture. She didn't look like someone hiding. She looked like someone who belonged there, someone used to being close to David. That sense of comfort ignited a wave of certainty across the internet. People believed they were witnessing the last known sighting of Celeste, but then cracks began to form. Some people pointed out that the girl looked slightly older than Celeste. Others said her height seemed off, or that her facial features didn't line up exactly. Debates erupted everywhere. Even so, the resemblance was strong enough to keep the theory alive, and the internet clung to the story like it was the missing piece that would finally explain everything. But no one expected what came next. The whole frenzy came crashing down when the FBI released a statement that immediately silenced the noise. Their confirmation hit harder than anyone expected. They said the girl in the video was not Celeste Rivas, not even close. Even the gossip outlet that first pushed the theory had to step back and correct itself. And this wasn't speculation, this was certainty. A fully sourced, official statement that shut the door on the viral claim in one clean sweep. That level of confidence meant investigators must have done a deep dive into the footage. Facial analysis, comparison technology, access to uncompressed video, expert review. They had the tools and resources that the internet never did. They didn't guess, they knew. They didn't leave room for interpretation. They eliminated the theory entirely, and the moment they did,
now TMZ, who posted and reported on these videos, has updated their article to say that the woman in the videos is not Celeste Rivas, according to a source that is connected to the case. So that could potentially be even a police officer that has already looked into this in their investigation. The fact that they very clearly made this update and blatantly said it is not her according to their source connected to the case makes it sound like they are absolutely.
Everything took an even darker turn, because if the girl wasn't Celeste, that meant something far more disturbing. It meant David was on stage, performing to thousands, smiling and acknowledging a girl who looked so much like Celeste that the entire internet was convinced it was her. Meanwhile, the real Celeste was likely already gone. The chilling possibility that he had chosen to interact with a lookalike or even intentionally positioned himself near someone who resembled her raised terrifying questions about his mindset. Was it guilt? Was it arrogance? Was it a twisted attempt to rewrite the timeline himself? The deeper people thought about it, the more unsettling it became. The idea that he could stand there and openly acknowledge a girl who mirrored Celeste's appearance made it feel like he was trying to confuse everyone watching, almost like he wanted people to question their own assumptions about when Celeste disappeared. It was the kind of behavior that made armchair psychologists and seasoned investigators alike start talking about patterns, compulsions, and psychological profiling. The history between David and Celeste only added layers to the darkness. Reports had already linked them through matching tattoos on their right index fingers.
What makes this even more eerie is that if it's not her, the fact that David was hanging out with a Celeste lookalike at a time that Celeste was probably already dead. This just makes my skin crawl.
An unmistakable sign of intimacy. Even more troubling was the claim that Celeste's own mother had confirmed her daughter was involved with someone named David around the time she vanished at 13 years old. The possibility that the 20-year-old artist had been in a relationship with her created a picture that most people didn't even want to imagine. The concert lookalike only magnified everything. It was no longer just about the missing girl. It was about the disturbing patterns forming around David, about the girls who looked like Celeste, about the timing that didn't add up, and about the mental state of someone who may have been trying to manipulate not only the people around him, but the world watching from the outside. When the FBI debunked the sighting so decisively, they didn't just shut down a rumor. They exposed how dangerous public speculation can become. Thousands of people online believed they were helping, believing they were piecing together clues that investigators missed, but in reality they were creating a fog around the truth. The noise, the theories, the constant misinformation made it harder to see what was real. And the fact that federal investigators, with access to details the public had no idea about, could dismiss the sighting instantly showed how far off the internet had been. But that wasn't the end of it. The revelation had major implications for David's legal situation. With the sighting disproven, the case against him shifted, not weakened. The focus moved away from the idea that Celeste was alive at the concert concert, and toward a far more disturbing possibility that he was consciously surrounding himself with girls who resembled her, that he was performing as if nothing had happened while the truth lay hidden, and that he might have been trying to manipulate the public narrative by creating moments that blurred the timeline. And then you think about Celeste's family. The emotional toll on them was unimaginable. For a brief moment, when the footage spread online, they must have felt something they had not felt in months: hope. A painful, fragile hope that their daughter might still be alive. And then the FBI crushed it instantly. The whiplash of that experience was heartbreaking beyond words. To believe for even a second that your child is alive, only to be told moments later that she is not, is a cruelty no family deserves. The internet looked in the wrong direction. The real horror was hiding in plain sight. The real shock in this case wasn't the false sighting or the mistaken identity. It was the chilling realization that David had allegedly been surrounding himself with girls who looked almost exactly like Celeste, while the real Celeste had already disappeared. That discovery hit investigators like a bucket of ice water. It wasn't just another strange detail. It was the detail that cracked the story open and revealed something far more horrifying beneath the surface. Suddenly, this was not just a messy celebrity scandal anymore. It was the unraveling of a psychological nightmare that investigators had quietly been piecing together behind the scenes. Once the feds dug deeper into David's digital history, the disturbing patterns came alive. Messages, deleted photos, hidden chats, and buried account logs painted a picture no one expected. It turned out that David's contact with Celeste might have begun way back in 2022, when she was barely 12 and he was 17. That meant this wasn't sudden, it wasn't impulsive, it wasn't a moment of bad judgment. It was years of slow, deliberate grooming, carried out in silence. A chilling timeline built step by step without anyone noticing how dangerous it was becoming. What made it even worse was the care he had allegedly taken to cover his tracks. Investigators uncovered wiped streams, missing screenshots, deleted message threads, and suspicious gaps in his online activity. These were not the mistakes of a careless teenager. They were the calculated actions of someone who allegedly knew exactly what he was doing and exactly how wrong it was. Every erased message suggested intent. Every missing piece of evidence suggested awareness. It showed someone trying to hide guilt and avoid consequences long before the world even knew Celeste's name. And that is where the entire look-alike theory grew into something far darker. Criminal profilers began weighing in with alarming insight. They explained that some predators will surround themselves with people who remind them of their victims as a way to maintain control over a fantasy they cannot let go of. It becomes a twisted psychological cycle, a way of clinging to something they have already lost. It is not just obsession, it is reenactment, and it often points to someone who is deeply aware of what they have done and is trying to hold on to the emotional power they once had. The deeper the investigation went, the more terrifying it became. David's own friends allegedly believed Celeste was an adult. They claimed they thought she was 19 because she used fake identification cards while she was around him. That means someone had gone to great lengths to make that lie believable. Fake identification is not something a 15-year-old gets alone. It takes connections, it takes effort, it takes intent. The fact that she had them at all pointed to someone deliberately creating a cover story to hide her true age. That detail revealed everything. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a carefully constructed setup with layers of deception wrapped around it. It made investigators step back and look at the entire case with new eyes. If someone was willing to go that far to hide Celeste's real age, what else were they willing to hide? Then came one of the most horrifying discoveries yet. Federal agents found claims that Celeste had told close friends she had been assaulted by David, and a man named Gus was reportedly an associate connected to David and someone who was often seen around him. But what made this even more chilling was the fact that Gus was found shot and dead in 2024, right in the middle of the time Celeste was missing. That timing was too strange to ignore. Investigators suddenly found themselves questioning whether Gus's death was a coincidence or if it was something much darker, something tied directly to the secrets he knew. It was the kind of plot twist that feels like fiction. A friend of the suspect dead in the middle of the timeline, a victim claiming assault before disappearing, and a pattern of grooming and deception slowly rising to the surface. It was becoming painfully clear that this case might not be as simple as one predator and one victim. It might have been part of something bigger, something with multiple moving pieces and too many coincidences to ignore. Meanwhile, as all of this was unraveling, David's behavior in public was nothing short of bizarre. bizarre. Instead of lying low or showing concern, he continued performing as if nothing bad had ever happened. He smiled on stage, danced, joked, interacted with fans. He surrounded himself with girls who looked like Celeste. He acted like the world had not changed at all, and that made investigators question everything. Was this denial? Was it arrogance? Or was it the behavior of someone living out a twisted fantasy, pretending life was normal even when the truth was far from it?
David and Celeste telling the moderators to delete streams and clips and things. Watch this clip.
Maz, can we delete all VODs? And then as soon as the stream ends, delete the stream too? Wait.
Oh, look it. Answer that one. That's so mean if you don't.
While the public debated theories, federal agents were moving swiftly. They secured search warrants for David's Hollywood Hills home, specifically looking for blood traces, digital data, and forensic signs that could connect him to Celeste's disappearance. The fact that the warrants were granted at all meant investigators had found enough evidence to believe something serious had happened there. That alone sent shockwaves across the entertainment world. During the search, law enforcement seized electronic devices, security footage, and various pieces of evidence that could soon reveal the truth. And here's where things could take a game-changing turn. David's home reportedly had multiple security cameras installed. If those cameras were active during the window when Celeste went missing, they could contain the precise timeline investigators desperately needed. They might reveal who entered the house, who left, and who was present during those final days. Those recordings could become the piece of evidence that ties everything together. As the case deepened, fans began taking a fresh look at David's music. Songs that once felt emotional suddenly sounded frightening. His breakout hit Romantic Homicide started resurfacing in discussions online. With the new context, the lyrics felt uncomfortably eerie. Themes of obsession, pain, control, and violence seemed to echo parts of this case, and the fact that he released that song on Celeste's birthday only added fuel to the fire. Was it coincidence or something darker? No one knew for sure, but the timing made everyone uneasy. People now wondered whether the music was expression or confession, whether the art reflected real life, whether the emotions in the songs were fiction or hidden truth. It became impossible to ignore the parallels, and as fans listened again, their stomachs twisted because the lyrics no longer sounded like heartbreak. They sounded like something much more sinister. At the same time, the FBI's official debunking of the viral concert footage forced the world to confront something else. Social media had become both a weapon and a trap in this case. True crime communities online, though well-intended, had blurred the lines between analysis and obsession. Theories spread faster than facts.
What makes this even more eerie is that if it's not her, the fact that David was hanging out with a Celeste lookalike at a time that Celeste was probably already dead. This just makes my skin crawl.
Images were enhanced, cropped, and distorted. Real evidence was buried under speculation. The internet had created its own narrative, one that often overshadowed the truth. But the FBI didn't care about theories. They cared about hard evidence. And their calm, direct debunking made one thing clear. They had access to details that the public did not. Their certainty showed that they had already built a strong timeline behind the scenes, one detailed enough to confidently eliminate misinformation, one strong enough to suggest they knew more than they were saying. Meanwhile, David's career was collapsing at a speed no one expected. Tours were canceled, sponsorships disappeared, his name was removed from festival lineups, companies unfollowed him, even his own record label reportedly froze his promotions. The entertainment industry moved fast, desperate to distance itself before anything worse came out, and that reaction told the world something important. They saw the direction the case was going, and they wanted nothing to do with what might be revealed, but nothing compared to the impact this had on Celeste's family. For a brief moment, that mistaken concert footage had given them hope that their daughter might still be alive, a moment of hope that vanished as quickly as it came. When the FBI confirmed the girl was not Celeste, her family had to relive the heartbreak all over again. It was a cruel cycle of hope and devastation that no parent should ever have to experience. And now, the case is darker than ever. Every new detail suggests something far bigger than a simple missing person investigation. The signs of long-term grooming, the digital cover-ups, the involvement of other individuals, the mysterious death of Gus, the fake identification, the disturbing patterns in David's behavior, and the alleged obsession with girls resembling Celeste have formed a web of horror that reaches far beyond anything anyone imagined when the case began. This is no longer a story about a young girl who vanished. It is a story about about how something this terrifying could grow in plain sight, about how someone could wear two faces so perfectly, one for the spotlight and one for the shadows, one adored by millions and one feared by those who knew the truth. It is a chilling reminder of how fame can hide darkness, how power can hide manipulation, and how charm can hide control. And as federal investigators continue tightening the timeline, the world is left holding its breath. Everyone is waiting for the next revelation, the next piece of evidence, the next truth that finally reveals what really happened to Celeste. This case is far from over, and the next chapter may be the darkest one yet. Let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next.